Who's hot? Who's not? Who's hot? Who's not?
Had an old little soundbite from my good friend Joey Cleveland there. Time to talk a little NBA with Erik. I'm Gino Bacola. Erik from eTop21 Sports has been with me every week for the last 4 years or so, talking NFL. And then once football stops, we transition on over to the NBA. So we'll catch up now, Erik. We didn't get a chance to talk last week, but we can go through some of the things that are happening in the NBA right now. We are only, a quarter of the way left in the season now. This is the real fun stretch run as we dive into the standings right now. We'll kind of go through some of the teams starting on the East and some of the big news. We are recording this on Wednesday night, so if you're listening to this, just keep in mind there are games happening on Wednesday night, so things might slightly be off based on some of those results in the games currently happening. But as I was getting my notes ready for this, Erik, yesterday, and I'm going through Boston and how their point differential per 100 minutes, the highest since the 96 Bulls. You go through all of their statistics. They're incredible. Watching the game last night, they're up by 22 points in the fourth quarter, 9 minutes left to go. And then we get an incredible comeback from the Cavs. They spit out a 22-point lead in the fourth quarter. The Cavs did not have Mitchell, Mobley, or Strus. And there ended up being a situation where with the 0.7 seconds, they were down by one. The Celtics were. There was a foul called, and Tatum was going to go to the line to shoot two. It got challenged. It got overturned. He ended up kicking his foot out to make contact. I mean, overall, Boston's been an incredible regular season team. When you see teams spit out a lead like this, or them in particular, does that make you worry at all? It was just a one-game thing. The guy got hot in the fourth quarter. He went nuts. Is there anything bigger picture to think about like this with the Celtics?
I'm actually going to be worried about the Celtics. I mean, my big thing always with them is Tatum realize, hey, Brown has it going, we need to give it to Brown. White has it going, we need to give it to White. Porzingis has it going, we need to give it to Porzingis. Tatum's got a history of kind of closing it out. Jaylen Brown, I really don't trust him. Left-handed has been better this year, but I really don't trust that he'll do it. And I just kind of feel the one guy that was kind of their pit bull is Marcus Smart. They have a bunch of nice guys, but do they really have that dog? Drew kind of got a little tired toward the end of last season. What is he going to look like this season? I know everyone says he's an elite defender, and he is, but Jimmy Butler did eat him alive in the playoffs. I think there is some area of concern with the Celtics just because this is their ceiling. They can't go up anymore. And when you look at the teams below them, you look at the Bucks, you look at the Cavs, you look at the Knicks, you look at the Heat, you look at the 76ers, their team ceiling has yet to be reached, and we're witnessing the Celtics team ceiling.
That's what I'm a little bit worried about right now, too. We kind of got into it with them last week. The way they score and the way they run their offense, they shoot so many threes that they kind of have a high variance. And in regular season, when you're shooting that many threes, you're going to win more games because they're shooting it better. They're good. Their starting lineup, their 1 through 6 is really, really good. I'm still really concerned about beyond that. And while they have upgraded with Porzingis and with Drew, and if they're all healthy, they're a little bit better probably overall than the guys at their positions previously that they got rid of, Williams and probably Smart for Drew, if you're looking at it like that. But deeper, right? Even guys like Grant Williams and Brogdon, I think those are the pieces that you're going to have to see guys prove themselves off the bench for this team come playoff time. And then just kind of looking at who they may match up with right now. We're still 20 games out, but looking at the way it's set up in the East, they're going to win the East. They're going to be the number 1 seed, no doubt about it. And it looks like we have a couple tiers sort of forming right now. Erik, it seems like it's going to be Milwaukee and Cleveland battling for second. And just the way Cleveland's playing right now, and maybe the way Milwaukee's starting to play, I think it would lean them. But we'll talk about Giannis and his injuries, and the Cavs have some injuries. There's another tier right below that where you have the Magic, Knicks, Heat, 76ers, and Pacers. They're all separated by 2 games. And I think like any playoff season, matchups would be really interesting because if you're Boston and you get the number 1 seed, you probably don't want to run into a team like the Knicks, who could be healthy at that point, a Heat team who you've struggled with, a 76ers team if Embiid's able to come back at all. Those are teams that could be pretty scary to play in a number 8 seed. even a team like the Pacers, who I don't think they could beat the Celtics in a series, but the Pacers are so good offensively that, they may be able to steal a game or two from you just because of how prolific they are offensively. So I think there are some teams that may not be just a cakewalk for them. And like I said, Miami's always going to be tough. And I still right now think that in a series, Milwaukee, I would take over them. I feel like the conversation around Boston is a little too much of kind of penciling them in. And I've heard people talk about the matchup between Boston and Denver, and I don't know. I'm not necessarily there with the Celtics.
I agree 100%. I just don't trust them. I mean, Brown and Tatum have done this how many years in a row now? And they have yet to get, quote unquote, over the hump. There needs to come a point where you know what I mean? Like, how many times do we need to see this record before we kind of say, hey, you know what? They're this, I don't even know what the term I'm looking for. This generation's Malone and Stockton. Just a team, like, always good regular season, but just never won it all.
And the team that's starting to play really well right now is Milwaukee. Erik, your Bucks, they have now won 6 in a row. They have the number 2 defensive rating since Doc has taken over. So in that stretch of games. And what I like hearing about Doc, because he gets a lot of crap, and I think a lot of times the crap is well-deserved. You and I have talked about him many times when he's coached different teams, and he's been in series where they've blown the 3-1 leads repeatedly, and he's had teams that seemed like they were the better team a lot and not won. And for Doc, I think we know his strengths and his weaknesses. His weaknesses are, come playoff time, sometimes he has a difficult time making adjustments. I don't even know if it's that he doesn't see it. He really has faith in a lot of his guys. He puts a lot of power and empowers the players. And that can hurt you, but what it can also do, Erik, is it can help you. Because one story that I really like to hear, and I'm sure you've heard more about this kind of thing than I have, is, right away Doc goes and asks Dame about the things that he wants to run, or what would you like to do to make you comfortable, things that you are familiar with. And all of a sudden they just have a little conversation, and they weren't even running some of the stuff that Dame had been really comfortable with in Portland, like right away. And that was easy for him. Those are the types of things that Doc does. And when you have a team like this one with Giannis and with Dame, I think those guys can be maybe enough to carry you if he's doing stuff like this and just putting them in positions to succeed.
I mean, I think the thing is we're starting to see a little effort from Dame on defense. You mentioned the defense, 98.7 points allowed since the All-Star game, top 10 since the All-Star game. It's starting to come around. We're starting to see Beasley try a little bit more on defense. We're starting to see Lillard try a little bit more on defense. Won 6 straight. We need to remember Middleton's not even back yet. Once we get Middleton back, it's kind of going to clone everybody down. They have those bench guys in Portis and
he had been struggling, so it was nice to see like the big game come from him, because he'd been unplayable in some spots throughout the year, and it feels like it's flipped for him. And he's a guy that you need, not necessarily every single night to give you that effort, but it's nice to know that he still has that there to win you a game in a series.
And then and I think he's great. He can stretch the floor. He can play 3. I think what he's able to do is phenomenal. And then I also think that, you get Pat Beverly. Bringing Pat Beverly back is absolutely huge. They got that guy that can defend, stretch the floor. And then he's just got the tenacity. I saw this clip on his podcast, and he made this comment. He told Dame just to shoot, dude. We need to practice you shooting these situations to kind of see what happens. Pat Beverly is a really intelligent guy when you listen to him. He is way smarter than we give him credit for. And he kind of understands the game of basketball at a deeper level than I thought.
He has to be, right? To be a guy that's small and undersized and make it this long, he has to understand where he needs to be on the floor, what he needs to do, what kind of things he can get away with as the type of player he is. He's the guy that you don't love when he's on an opposing team, and when he's on your team, you realize a little bit more. And he played for the Lakers last year, and he didn't really have it was that kind of at a weird fit and a weird moment. But when you need a player like him, and he fits the role you need. He really can. You can be very successful with him. I don't know if he's going to be closing out every game for you in the playoffs, but that doesn't matter. He can be setting a tone, like you said. And when the games where you get a little sleepy and lazy, he doesn't really let you do that.
No, he's going to stay on your face. He's going to be in your face the whole 9 yards. He's going to be he can pick someone up 90 feet. He's what they need. Someone who come in 15 to 20 minutes, play defense, make life hell for Derek White, Garland or Mitchell, Suggs or Fultz, Jalen Brunson.
Yep. All these guards down the line.
Just like
Maxey.
He's exactly what they need, and it's great that they got him. I think it's a kind of an underrated, kind of a PJ Tucker-esque pickup for him.
Yep. The Cavs, they were playing last night in that game against Boston on Tuesday night. They came back from 22 down 9. Wade goes nuts in the fourth quarter with 20 points. They win without Mitchell, Mobley, Strus. Largest fourth quarter comeback in team history, tied for the largest fourth quarter comeback by any team this year. I still kind of feel the same with them. Like, I don't know what really to expect from them till we get playoff time. Right now, though, you can't feel fantastic when Mitchell has to get a PRP injection in his knee out for at least 3 games. This is not a positive for them with a guy they need to be their lead guy. They've improved this year in some spots, and I'm really impressed with what they've been able to do. But then the entire season will start over come playoff time. And if they're a little bit banged up, they could be in a situation where they catch a series against, I don't know, the Knicks, the Heat, the Sixers. And if those teams are a little healthier than them, they're going to be in serious trouble.
This team is insanely banged up. Mobley's out for a while. Mitchell out for a while. Garland's missed 20 plus games. Strus missed his first game. This team, for them being at the 3 seed where they are, I think it's absolutely remarkable. The thing that with Mobley and Allen, though, if you had to guess where they were in offensive rebounding, where would you guess they are?
Towards the top, right?
17.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That just seems really low. Plus, we need to remember when stuff shrinks in the playoffs, can you run both bigs? I really think Mobley's that guy you like because he can defend the rim, he'll rebound, he hustles, but yet he also won't complain about not getting 12, 15 shots, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And losing that is absolutely huge. We've seen, I really think, Okoro, who I was hyping on, he should have been playing more in the playoffs last year. He's made a big jump this year. 3-point percentage up from 36.3 to 40.5. But is Bickerstaff going to trust him in the playoffs? Because last year, missed a couple threes. He went exactly away from it. And he's the type of player that they're going to need to count on in a playoff series. Strus is Strus. He can make some threes, but he's a huge liability defensively. I just don't know if this team has enough wings to compete and make a deep run. I think if they play a team like Philly, I think they can beat Philly. I think they could beat the Knicks, but I don't think they could beat the top 2, the Bucks or the Celtics in a series just because of their wing play.
Below them, the Magic kind of quietly up to number 4. Eric, they've won 4 in a row and 9 of their last 11. They're 10 games above 500 for the first time since April of 2012. So for a franchise that's been used to losing, they're playing really well right now.
And when we look at Paulo, I mean, has there been a top draft pick that has turned a franchise around and just get little to no cred? His field goal percentage this year is up 4 points, 3-point percentage up 7 points, rebounds from 6.9 to 6.8, basically the same, down just a hair. Assists per game up. This is big because you need your stars to get players involved. He's over 5 assists per game, was at 3 last year, up to 22.9 points from 20. And the Orlando Magic are the 4th seed in the East and will be hosting a playoff game if it canceled right now. Mosley, great job coaching. Wagner, you look at his stats, one of the best players in the fourth quarter. I'm a little bit worried about their point guard position just because I don't like how they stack the minutes with Fultz and Suggs. I think they're a great story, but I think they're missing a guard.
Yeah. Like someone that could like a veteran guard. Is that what you're thinking? More like, or what kind of player? Who's someone like a profile, like a temp? Van Vliet, yeah,
Yeah, someone like that.
yeah. He would. I know what you're talking about. They're one. They feel like they're one piece away, but another team that I have to give them all the credit in the world for what they've done so far. And the teams.
And then real quick, like,
go ahead.
We're watching the product right now on the NBA, and these teams are scoring 128, 140 points. Playoff basketball is not like that. You have to be able to take a step back. Possessions get a little shorter. Stuff isn't called as much. It's a little bit more physical. People try harder. Everyone plays. So you need to kind of keep that in mind when you're watching what's going on. And also these injuries. I mean, the East, Cavs, Knicks, Heat, 76ers, all those teams extremely banged up, and you kind of have to monitor where those guys get back. Yeah, I know Embiid could come back, but if he comes back, he's the type of guy that needs a little time. You know what I mean? He's not going to be able to come back.
Fitness level, because they're going to want to come. You're going to have him, and it's going to be hard to play him 20 minutes, 22 minutes, especially in a playoff series. So you're going to need to get him to shake a little bit of the rust off. And that's what there are two teams right now that got to be a little bit worried based on where they had probably hoped to be this year, the Knicks and the Sixers. Because right now where they're sitting, they are, the 76ers have dropped into the play-in. The Knicks are in the 5 spot right now. You've got, the Knicks have only won 3 of their last 10, so they're falling. The Heat have won 8 of their last 10. They're getting a little bit healthier here. And with Philly, we don't know what's up with Embiid. With the Knicks, Brunson had a knee injury. MRI comes back clean, but he missed Tuesday. Probably going to be a little cautious with him, but you can't necessarily be too cautious because this team could fall. They're probably not going to fall below number 8 because the Bulls are a long way below them. But you start getting to the point where, you're in the play-in and you were a team that you thought all year you were probably going to be hosting a playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, kind of tough with this trade that the Knicks did. 4-9 since the trade, but you mentioned it, no Randall, no Brunson.
Anunoby, Robinson too.
That forces every guy to kind of be up a peg.
Yep.
And, that's kind of a tough thing to do. Look, but at the end of the day, for as good as Brunson is, and I think Brunson is great, can you win with him and Randall carrying the load?
Your ones.
I don't think you do. I think their ceiling is a second-round team. I think they definitely need another guard, someone else, like to kind of take the load off. To me, Brunson is a step above Chauncey Billups when Chauncey Billups was with Michigan State, with the Detroit Pistons. That lead guard can defend, make a big shot, get to the rim, make a free throw. But he played really well off Rip Hamilton. They need their Rip Hamilton. I really don't know off the top of my head who they can get that can be that, but they need to improve that guard position. DiVincenzo and Hart are great, but at an elite team that's going to win a championship, they are a role player at backup.
Brunson is the type of guy who now where he is, because he's raised his level, he feels like the type of guy who would be a good fit with someone at the level of like an Anthony Davis, to where that Brunson's playing with another guy who's probably better than him overall, but Brunson does the playmaking stuff, the perimeter stuff, that he has another guy who can take care of a lot of the interior stuff. Like, I think he could be matched well with a guy like that, like a Bam, someone who's like a talented big, can do some things. Because when you look at the bigs that, basically if you're not Jokic, it's really hard now to be a big and to be a number 1. Or at least to be a guy, you need another ball handler, that because you got to have someone that can get you the ball or that can make plays when you're not getting the ball, right?
You mentioned Bam. I mean, he on a little bit of run. What are they, 9-1, 8-2 in their last 10?
Right. Yep.
His level he's playing on with the dribble handoffs, them running the offense through it. He's been elite this year. I really don't think he's getting enough credit. But on the flip side, Tyler Hero's been out since the 23rd of February. I mean, you know how I feel about Tyler Hero. I actually think the Heat are better with no Tyler Hero, just because the ball sticks a little bit too long in their hands. Ball's actually moving a little bit more. For what Terry Rozier does, I'd much rather have him playing a guard position than
Hero.
Hero. But the Heat are the Heat, man. They're just going to come. They're going to grind. They're going to compete. One guy I don't know, the rookie from UCLA, whose name I'm spacing. What he's been able to do stepping in has been phenomenal for Strus. They do not miss Strus at all. They got Terry Rozier. For them, it's just going to come down to matchups. I mean, they're definitely, I feel, one of the top tier teams in the East. You definitely have to respect them, but they just want to be healthy for the playoffs and get in the series. I think it'd be really electric if they do play the Bucks. I think that'd be must watch after, the little back and forth, what's gone on for them the last 4 or 5 years. But, I'm worried about the Heat. I think the Heat could come out of the East again.
They're 8-2 in their last 10. And like you said, it's a guarantee Boston and Miami or Boston and Milwaukee do not want to play this team in the first round, right? Where they're sitting in the 6th spot right now, but they could be in that range where they're anywhere up to the 4 and all the way down to the 8 based on what happens over the next few weeks. If you're one of those top teams, you do not want to play this team in the first round because 1, you could lose, but 2, even if you beat them, it probably is not going to be easy. You're going to be playing a tough team that is very well coached, and you're probably going to be out-coached. If you're Mazzulla or Doc, you're already going to be in a series where the other coach is a better tactician than you in that series. You have the better roster and the better top-tier players, but the other guy has proven that they can make adjustments that neutralize some of your better players at times. And that's a scary place to be. You were pointing it out. They have Hawkes. When you go through their roster right now, and it's Butler, Bam, Rozier, Martin, Robinson, Hawkes Jr., they throw Jovic in there. If Hero's back, that gives them, 8. That's a pretty solid, and maybe another 1 or 2 options where they've got at least 6 or 7 guys they trust. And, Butler this year, which is kind of crazy, he's shooting 46% from 3 in his career. He doesn't take a lot of threes. He only has 2.3 attempts, but he's never shot over 38. He actually went through a stretch in his career 3 years in a row, 2019 to 2022, 24%, 24%, 23%. He's literally double that at 46% this year on a small sample size. That may be something, if he's just more comfortable shooting the 3, playoff games, they get tight like that, he probably will take a few more threes. This team is scary. Nobody will want to play them early on, and they keep kind of creeping up the standings right now as Philly and the Knicks keep dropping down. We've talked a little about them. Philly, they lost to Brooklyn without Embiid and Maxey, and the Magic and the Heat keep winning, so now Philly has dropped all the way down. Maxey had a concussion, so hopefully it won't be too long for him, but who knows with Embiid, and they're probably lucky at this point that I don't think they will be able to drop any lower than the 8 seed because the Bulls are, 5-6 games behind them still. But this team,
the Bulls and the Hawks, they're both done.
Yeah, they're so far behind. They're 9 and 10, no doubt about it. They can't get to this next spot. And that's kind of it is important now to mention, the top 6 is a big deal, and then 7-8 is another one because then you're in the spot where you only have to win 1 game to get a series.
Yeah, you only need to win 1 to get a series, and both those guys are going to be locked in there. I think, this is pretty much how it's going to be. Philly's going to be 7, Pacers are going to be 8.
Me too. I don't think there's going to be too much movement there. And with Indy, they could be feisty and win a game or 2 because of how good they are offensively, but they're so bad defensively. Come playoff time, if they just can't get stops like they have proven throughout the year, they're going to have a hard time winning a series. So fun for them again, kind of taking that next step this year so far as we've gone through a little bit what's been happening in the East over the last week and a half. Let's move.
Go
ahead. Oh, you wanted to talk about Cade, right?
I'm not one to complain about the officials or anything, but Cade Cunningham cannot get a foul called to save his life. He is in the top 5 in the league in drives per game. Okay, so he's going to the rim. He's getting contact. Colin Sexton averages more drawn fouls per game than Cade Cunningham.
Getting zero respect.
1.3. It is absolutely insane. And you see him talking to Monty. I think there's a serious disconnect between those two, just because he's like, do something, defend me, and stand. I just think there's dissension.
He wants him to go to bat for him.
Yeah, because of how the game is being called. And you look at Cade, I mean, Jesus, dude. Field goal percentage up to 48.5.5. 3-point percentage up to 36. 3-point throw percentage up to 8.6. Points up to 22.2. And he's giving 7.4 assists per game. He's morphing into everything Detroit wanted. But for whatever reason, he's just getting no respect when he drives the lane. I mean, I'm not saying a homer, but when you are top 5 driving to the lane, getting contact, and you're outside the top 28, you know what I mean? Like Colin Sexton is getting more drawn fouls than you are. There's something that needs to be looked at.
Cade is kind of quietly having a nice year, but you know they're not winning games. He's down there at the bottom with the Wizards, who just lost again, Eric, as we're recording. The Wizards were up on Orlando earlier. Orlando came back, so that's 16 in a row now for the Wizards.
And it's kind of funny how everyone who messaged me when I was on my Jordan Poole rant 2 years ago has kind of quietly disappeared.
Oh, yeah. I mentioned that stat a few weeks ago, how he's been one of the worst players in history in plus minus. And what's funny, he went absolutely ballistic against the Lakers a few weeks ago, or like about a week ago, and the Lakers had to come back and win that game. And I mean, it was so, when you're just watching him throwing up those horrible shots and they're going in, there's nothing worse than that feeling. It was like, this guy, no way. And luckily they came back there. Speaking of the Lakers, let's move over to the West. We'll get to them in a minute, but let's kind of go in order towards the top of the West, where Minnesota and OKC, the young teams, have been playing, to continue to play well. They both won 7 of their last 10. They're right up at the top of the division, Western Conference right now, top of the conference. And it does feel to me, though, very similar to last year, Eric. And I think we hit on this, where last year you had Memphis and Sacramento, who I think finished as number 2 and 3 seeds. And they had really good regular seasons to where they were feeling great. And all of a sudden, the way things shook out at the end, those teams ended up having to play the Lakers and the Warriors. And so for these young teams, after having a really good season, it's a little bit nerve-wracking when you see LeBron and AD and Steph and the Warriors who have been proven, right?
It comes down to matchups. Like,
yeah,
for the Timberwolves, you can't play Gobert and Towns in a playoff series. You just can't do it. I mean, we've been down that road numerous times. It just can't be done. And the one thing that's really stuck out to me for the Thunder is they made this trade for Hayward, which Hayward has not looked comfortable at all. He was supposed to be a veteran presence that would push them over the edge. And we're starting to see teams just completely sag off Josh Giddey. If that is the case, he's going to be unplayable in the playoffs. And it's really tough just because Shea needs the ball in his hand. He needs to be the guy running the point, getting to the rim, driving to the rim, getting everyone involved. But Giddey's kind of like that player too. He doesn't play well off the ball. I really think that one move we're going to see this summer is the Thunder look to move off Josh Giddey, kind of get a more established catch and shoot 3-point type of guy at that shooting guard position, because I don't think they can win with a Giddey and Shea backcourt. That's my thing with them. In terms of the Nuggets, I just kind of feel
real quick on the Thunder too. And when you were talking about matchups, you look at those top 2 teams in particular, a team like the Thunder, I think they actually match up pretty well with the teams like the Warriors and the Kings and the Mavs, who don't have that much size and that are kind of towards the bottom, are teams that they absolutely could end up playing in a series. We've seen, and I'm not necessarily taking much out of the game that the Lakers just played against them, because OKC was on a back-to-back and they came off of a big kind of emotional win the day before where they were up and they came back. And so it wasn't surprising to me. The Lakers played really well in that game also, but that has been a bad matchup for them this year because of the size. And just because AD and Chet, they don't really have much more size there. And more than AD, when you kind of look at the way everybody kind of matches up with their opposing player. Rui is big for his position. LeBron is big for his position. So all of a sudden, when the Lakers have LeBron, AD, and Rui out there, they're just a lot bigger than the guys on the opposite side of OKC. And I'm not saying the Lakers would necessarily even beat them in a series, but even talking to some of the Oklahoma City fans, they look at some of the other teams as just a much better matchup, I think, for them, because the other teams that are smaller, that don't have the size, or the teams that don't want to drive the lane, that's what the Lakers will do, right? LeBron and AD and even Reeves, they'll kind of go at you. Rui will do that a little bit too. They don't really have that much of a paint presence. So those top couple of teams could be really interesting to whom they match up with. And hell, Eric, right now with 20 games to go, there's between Phoenix and Golden State, it looks like anybody could be anywhere from 6 through 10.
Yeah, I mean, one loss. I mean, you're just going to see these teams just start jumping. The Nuggets to me, though, are still kind of the team.
Yep. When they're healthy.
That no one can really check Joker. You got Porter, you got Murray, you got CB3.
KCP.
KCP, Jesus.
You were doing the initials. It was all good. I know where you're going.
I really think the sneaky thing about the Clippers is Westbrook's been pretty good this year, playing his role and everything, and he's hurt, so I'm a little bit worried about them.
Because you know why? He takes. It's not that he's the best player on their team anymore. As you hit it perfectly, he really has accepted his role, but he kind of is the alpha in the room there. When you think about their other stars, PG isn't an alpha. Harden is really laid back. He's not a leader. And Kawhi is super laid back. And they haven't really had that voice in the locker room. So it was nice to have that guy. He kind of like what you were saying about Beverly, right? It's like Russ in dosage in the right role is still a guy who gets you up, makes some of these guys who can get a little lackadaisical sometimes, who maybe don't get as motivated instantly. He makes sure they do that. And you watch this team right now, they've blown 2 huge leads in just the last week. They do not look sharp. Well, the Lakers outscored them 39-16 in the fourth quarter. And then they game against Milwaukee without Giannis and Middleton.
Yeah, that was bad.
So between those 2 games, you're looking at a Clippers team that doesn't look well, as nearly as well as they were playing earlier. And they may have a little.
Ty Lue's one of those guys that can just X and O some stuff up. He's
very good.
He's very good. I mean, obviously with them, we've seen it. Kawhi has just shown he's been unreliable. George has disappeared in the playoffs. I love Norm Powell. I think that's a guy that could definitely do something. But in terms of, this is a team that if it made it to the championship, the Western Conference Finals, it wouldn't surprise me. If they lost in 6 in the first round, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, I just still think there's a few teams that are like in the West that I trust more because where you're hitting at, what we've seen from them, they're certainly capable and good enough if they have their pieces around and they were to get the right matchup. And they do have a very good coach who is good at making adjustments and really good at X's and O's. But right now they just don't seem as sharp. And that happens. Everybody doesn't play as top level all throughout the season, but you're comparing them to the team they're right next to, like the Nuggets, Eric, it's one of those things too, where coming off of some of the games the Nuggets played recently, they did not play well against the Suns. They come all the way back and then they go to overtime. Jokic has 7 turnovers. You got Murray misses a couple layups down the stretch. When they played the Lakers, and basically it's been a repeat of the last 8 times they played the Lakers, they scored 25 points on their final 12 possessions of the game.
Jesus.
It was just and this is what I think you were hitting on, and I agree. When you watch them, and they almost did it even by making a few mistakes against Phoenix, they came back from a huge deficit against Phoenix. But they are so efficient at the end of games, and Jokic just makes the right decisions so often. And Murray is such a good clutch player and raises his level. I was joking, posting a few times watching the game, like, I'm not used to seeing these guys miss shots like that, because against the Lakers, all they've done is hit just incredibly difficult shots. And I do sort of feel like it is one of those things where they're better than everyone. And it's, even the best teams aren't going to beat you 10 or 15 or 20 times in a row. It's probably a situation for the Lakers now where it's a little bit in their head mentally with what's happened last year in the playoffs. And now I think 8 times in a row, to where it may be the situation where if they were to win 1 or 2 games, it might flip to where they would win a couple, because you're more likely to have it be like 8-4. But it just shows you the difference when you're basically all the games that I've seen them play against the Lakers from last year's playoffs to this year, they're within like 5 in the last 2 minutes, and they just make every play down the stretch. And I don't see that from any other team nearly as often. Definitely not in the West, and even in the East, right? We're hoping Milwaukee could be good, and Boston's been great, but this team, when it matters, when it's close, when it's clutch, they just make the right plays. All of their guys, from KCP to Gordon to Murray, they're all in the right spot. They know where to be. And Jokic he orchestrates it all.
He's just the dude. I mean, and plus there's no one that can guard him. I mean,
no.
I really think the big thing about that Murray can do is they have someone at the end of the game who's not going to miss a 3 throw. I mean, this kid, 94%. Like, he just won't miss a 3 throw, and you can't sag off of him in the pick and roll with Joker just because he can knock down a 3. You read about his shooting drills his dad did. This guy is just not going to miss just because of the work he put in when he was a kid. Porter, I mean, he
was 10 for 10. He was 10 for 10 the other day.
Yeah, I mean, Porter, he's like their third option.
Shot, man. Come on.
He's always going to have a great matchup. Then you got Aaron Gordon, who can check, he can defend. KCP, another 3D guy. Team's just built good. But health is for them. Pelicans, interesting study with them. When all 3 other guys are healthy, they are good. I was a little disappointed in the play-in game. They really shit excuse my language. The crap for that against the Lakers. Zion going through Erik, they just really haven't won anything, and they get a lot of credit for people for being good. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
those are 2 guys that haven't won anything, and they get a lot of treated like they do win some things. I think it's a little bit of an underperforming team.
They're another team that's sort of, you look at their entire group, I like overall. I individually have no problem with like most of these guys. Ingram, Zion, CJ, Valanciunas, Herb Jones, Murphy. Trey Murphy hit 10 threes and Herb Jones hit 5. They hit 24 threes on Tuesday when they won. You got Marshall, Alvarado, Larry Nance. They're actually a good road team. They're 19-13 on the road. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're all the way up to the number 5. But I look at them and I feel like pretty much every team that's around them, I would pick over them in a series.
Oh, 100%.
And that's what's sort of what I kind of had the conversation with. I like a lot of their team. I'm not surprised when they play well and win games, but I think when it comes down, lockdown, I think you can attack Zion. I really don't trust. I think defensively they could have some issues come playoff time. And I mean, they're playing well. They're in a nice spot. They're in the 5th spot right now. So they'd have a first round kind of interesting matchup against the Clippers. I mean, where the Clippers, who've been a really good team all throughout the year, but struggling a little bit lately, I don't think the Pelicans would necessarily hate that matchup based on, some of the other teams in front of them. But Phoenix has a really tough schedule coming up. That win for them was huge last night because right below them, you've got the Lakers and the Warriors who are trying to move up and been playing a little bit better. And Phoenix is just over the play-in right now. But Booker is hurt. And with their depth, missing a Booker or a Beal or a Durant, that really, really impacts them. So, his injury, that's massive news and something that could be a big deal for this team because where they are right now, the difference between that and the 10 spot is not far at all.
I really think this Suns team I like what they have, but these guys just haven't played enough with each other to mesh. I like the pieces that they've kind of meshed together around the big three, but they just haven't been around enough to do anything.
Because Allen's had a great year. You mentioned O'Neal, who they brought in. Those two guys, they've been really good. And Allen's like leading the league in 3-point percentage. He had a huge night again. Their role players have been very good in their roles. They're just a bad fourth quarter team. They're a bad team late in games because they don't have enough overall. And it shows because they haven't, as you pointed out, had their pieces throughout. Jurkic had 30 rebounds the other night, just a huge night. But I completely agree with you. I just sort of start matching them up. If everyone has been completely healthy for a stretch of games, they've been pretty good. But right now, it doesn't feel like that's where they're going to be for this final quarter of the year. And they need their health because they have, I think, the toughest schedule in the league. They play a bunch of top 5 teams in both conferences, and they're going to be shorthanded now doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they could fall. Their schedule, when I looked at it, I thought their schedule and the Lakers' schedule are the two toughest of those teams kind of in the position they're in.
The huge game that's about to come up, you and I are recording right now, it comes up in about an hour, is the Lakers versus the Kings. Lakers and the Kings play twice in the next 7 days. The Kings have 5 games coming up in the next 7 days. So things could change a lot for this team. They just blew a 22-point lead to the Bulls, and they have 2 back-to-backs coming up in the next 5 days, in the next 7 days, in the next week. So they're a team that right now we've seen them drop a little bit. I think you and I were kind of expecting this team to regress a little from last year. They were very efficient. They were very good. One thing that they've had is just incredible health. A lot of their top players have not been hurt at all the last 2 years. And when you just compare that to the other teams, it makes a lot of sense why they've been pretty good. And when they're falling right here, they're a team that's still not that big. That's, you look at the games that they'll have against the Lakers, where the Lakers could match up well with them is, can they pound? Can they use some of that size? Huge games coming up for Sacramento in the next week. Sacramento and Dallas are the 2 teams that really are struggling right now and that are really kind of free falling down the standings, Erik.
I'll tell you what, like that game that Dallas lost this weekend against the 76ers was bad. There's no excuse for them not to win that game, especially how they started the game. PJ Washington, the lack of effort that guy shows is just absolutely amazing to me. How, you know what I mean? He just like going through the motions, it seems like.
So as you say that, their defense ranks dead last since the All-Star break. They're allowing 126 points per 100 possessions. That's 3.5 points worse than the Wizards, who are second to last and just lost their 16th game in a row. The Mavs have lost 5 out of 6. They're now in the 8th spot. They're only a half game up on the Lakers. How crazy is this? During the last 6 games, Luka has averaged 37.3 points, 9.8 rebounds, 11.3 assists. He's had 3 straight double-doubles. They've lost all 3 of those games, and he's only 1-5 in the stretch where he's averaged those numbers I just pointed out. They're not playing well at all defensively. It's the same sort of thing that happened for them last year at the end of the year. You see these teams that don't have a whole lot of – it's not even a big man. It's just presence defending the paint. Guys that can give you a little resistance defending the paint when they have Lively around and one or two of them. But man, that lack of effort, as you were pointing out, you just watch it in some of their games. And
I like Lively a lot.
Me too. I like Lively too.
He hasn't been healthy enough. You got Kyrie there. I just don't feel that Kyrie and Luka is ever going to work. I don't like how kids managing the rotation. I don't like what I see from PJ Washington. I don't know. Like this team to me is going to be a team that loses first round. I don't think we're going to see it where they made that run. When was it, last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Where they made that run to the, what was it? Was it 2 years ago?
Conference finals when
Yeah.
they lost to the Warriors, because that was when that was the Brunson coming out party.
Yeah.
Right.
So
When Brunson won the series without Luka.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel that that was their year, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're going to do something. And they messed up. They had a chance
for Portland one year too, right?
If Brunson would have stayed there, this team would be legit. But
completely agree.
For whatever reason, they let Brunson go. Term of your Lakers, I had a chance to watch your Lakers a little bit. I watched 2 Lakers games. The things that stood out to me were this. For them to be successful, they need Christie to start hitting some threes. I love Max Christie, former Michigan State Spartan.
He's good. He needs to play more. They need to play it more.
Yeah, he needs to be able to shoot threes to be able to stretch the floor. I don't know what it is with Darvin Ham and Prince. I don't know if it's because they were together at Atlanta, but I think Prince plays a little bit too much than he should.
There was a stat. The Lakers, when he plays under 24 minutes, they were undefeated this year.
Yeah,
it's not an indictment on him as a player. It's that he is a guy who's a 20-minute player. That's what he is. He's a good role player. He's your 7th guy, right? On your team, he's your 2nd man off the bench who can, do a little bit. But they were having him be like the wing stopper, and they were putting him in roles that just weren't his role. And coaches do this. This happens. Like, everybody has like a favorite or guys they like a little bit more, or maybe they think are a little better than. But what ended up happening, and just the other night against Oklahoma City, you saw it. Prince's minutes have been getting cut now a little bit because he's out of the starting lineup now. And now we're seeing, and Cam Reddish is back. So Cam gets a few more of his minutes because defensively, Cam is better. He's a better point of attack defender, and he can do a couple other things a little bit, like in the role that they need. So all of a sudden we saw Prince providing more effort, jumping a little higher on the rebounds, playing a little harder defensively. He was playing less minutes. He had a little bit more to give. It all made sense. And for me, watching them, Eric, like, they're 9-2 with the starting lineup of LeBron, AD, Rui, Austin, D'Lo. Offense is much, much better. This team, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat a good team in a playoff series if they don't have a somewhat healthy Jared Vanderbilt. And I don't think Jared Vanderbilt is like an end-all be-all, but they need another guy who can just help them defensively. They just need another option there, like another guy who can do that. And they have the guy on their roster if he's healthy. And what we saw this year, which was nice, is which is a bummer as a fan, right before he got hurt, he was playing like the best offensively he ever had. They had a talk with him, and it was one of these talks where it was sort of like, hey, dude, do you notice that the other team just completely sags off you and they play you like a guy who's a joke? They kind of like got in his head. They said, dude, you can't catch the ball and drive the lane and slam dunk when you're wide open. Of course you can. And what ended up happening, he started making easy buckets. And then, like anything, he starts hitting a few more threes. And it was a bummer because he played 40 minutes in one game because he was playing so well offensively that he wasn't a liability anymore. And if he can just give you a few minutes and an option, I think their ceiling is higher. Without them, I just don't know defensively if they can get enough stops like against good teams, because they're playing guys who aren't that good defensively. It's not like D'Angelo and Austin can only do so much. It's not their fault. They're just not defensive players, right? Like, they can't only do this much. Rui too. Rui can be big, but he can't move his feet. And then all of a sudden you got Rui, Austin, and D'Angelo on the court. And if another team is playing well offensively, that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on Anthony Davis.
Yeah. And I also think like another key thing is Gabe Vincent being hurt has absolutely killed you guys. You guys just don't have that backup point guard.
Yep. Because you know what? I want to give him a shout. I don't think this will sustain, but one thing that he came in and when they brought him in, Dinwiddie, I was like, no, Dinwiddie. I don't know if he's the type of guy that's needed. And I still don't know what kind of impact he will have. But as a fan, what I like, he came in right away and he said, when they talked to him, he said, hey, I didn't come here to try to make this about me. I know that this is a place where I can win. And I look around, and this team has a lot of pretty good offensive players. I could probably help a little defensively because I have some size and they could use some, another guard. And his plus minus in the time he's been with the Lakers, I know it's not a perfect stat, but it's been way better than you would have thought if you looked at his numbers, because he's not scoring a lot. But I'm really pleased with him going out there and trying hard defensively, because that's all it comes down to, a lot of it, Eric, trying, going out there and realizing you got to put a little bit of extra effort. So I wanted to give him a shout, because you're right, man. If this Lakers team had a healthy Vincent, a healthy Cam Reddish, a healthy Vanderbilt, those are 3 guys that you can throw at people defensively at stretches of the game that can really be disruptive. But they just haven't had all of those guys at any point this year together.
Yeah, it's just, how can I word this? They've been banged up. Everyone's been banged up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of the thing. Looking at their schedule, they have a tough little schedule to end it. The
Really
only
tough.
real quote unquote gimme games, they have 2 against the Grizzlies, 1 against the Raptors, 1 against the Wiz.
The only thing that's nice for them is they don't travel a lot, but they're tough teams. They play a lot of home games, but good teams coming up.
And teams that will probably be battling for a position. It's not like they're going to be playing.
Trying.
Like maybe like they have the Bucks toward the end. Maybe the Bucks are kind of quote unquote mailed it in, have been locked up in their position. Have the Wolves toward the end. Maybe the Wolves, you know what I mean? The second time they play the Wolves. Maybe it's one of those things, they're playing a team that's kind of locked in their position and mails it in. And I'm just going to say it. I don't trust Cam Reddish at all. Like,
oh no, to me, what I like about Cam, he's never a guy that you are trusting to you need. He's like a playoff guy that's like hey, this dude on the other team is like being, you can't do anything. Every other game, Cam will go out there and make that person work and make life hard on them. And he can do it for just 5 minutes at a time. And that's what I like about what this team could have as a whole. Because when you're slotting guys down and Cam is your 8th and 9th man, I think that's a great spot, because those are guys where you don't need them to be every single night a guy you're playing 30 minutes. Come playoff time, he's a guy who plays 10, 12 minutes. You get one stretch each half, and, maybe it gets extended if you hit a couple shots and you're playing well. To me, it's just mainly the types of players that have been hurt for the Lakers are the better defensive players on their team besides AD. Like the other 3 guys that were supposed to be wing defender 1, Vanderbilt, he's been out the whole year. Wing defender 2, Reddish, he's been pretty hurt. Perimeter defender Vincent, he's been out the entire year. So it's like, damn, even the guys they could have to throw at someone for 5 or 10 minutes, they haven't had them, and that's what's been a bummer. But I've been kind of up and down on Reddish, because I agree with you. Like, he's not someone at all who I want making decisions, kind of handling the ball, anything like that. I like him chasing someone around for 5 minutes and just making sure that LeBron or someone else doesn't have to do that. That's fine. Got to get healthy and match up for them. Like we said, they catch an OKC team, they'll probably feel pretty good. But they catch a Minnesota team who has some bigs and can maybe make life difficult for AD, and it's not easy to just drive the lane on them. That's probably not the greatest matchup for the Lakers, against the Wolves. Let's talk about the final team, Eric, as we finish up. The Warriors, they've been playing well, and they get beat by 50 the other night their day against Boston, where they were just leaving Jaylen Brown wide open. That was sort of their approach in that game, and Boston went nuts. And Boston still has, I think, a little bit of the chip on their shoulder and a little revenge from the finals a few years ago. So they probably wanted that game a little bit more. But talk about Golden State. Where do you think they end up here and about their chances?
I mean, look, you got Steph. Clay's kind of accepted his role coming off the bench. You have CP3. Just because of the veteran leadership they have, they're just going to be a tough out. But, I mean, realistically, let's say they do sneak in. I mean, I really feel for the Lakers or the Warriors to make any noise, they need to get up to that 8 line. I just don't think they 100%. Can each other and then win another game and then win a series against whoever, even against the Thunder or the Wolves or Denver. Like, zero chance.
Nope. And as a fan, I feel the exact same way. I feel that. as a fan right now, I'm feeling like, okay, I want the Lakers to be 7-8 in that spot at least. And I'll feel, okay, 2 chances to win 1 game to get a series. And at least you're there, but you want to win that first game. Then you don't have to play. You still can get a couple days off before your series starts. And you got a little more of an opportunity because the Lakers did that last year. And they ended up, you win 1 game on the road. I'm not necessarily worried about them, but having to go from the back up, man, especially when it's a play-in that could have KD, it could have Durant, it could have Steph and LeBron and AD and Luka. Like those could be the teams in the play-in. I mean, so really crazy to think about as we finish up with this week's NBA Who's Hot, Who's Not. Erik, talk to us about what you have coming up this week. Normal podcast schedule for you, so that'll come out on Friday.
Yeah, coming out on Friday. We'll have some NASCAR bets, some UFC bets, and some college basketball betting. So it's going to be an absolutely loaded extravaganza.
Next weekend, Selection Sunday, right?
Yep, a week from Sunday. I'm really looking forward to it. And
I'm gonna join you on.
I think be on my stream on Tuesday night. Before we're gonna go through all the brackets, share some futures, share some first round bets that we're looking to knock out. So it should be a good time.
Yeah, and I think that week what we'll do too is for that week we'll just shift over and talk NCAA instead of college or instead of NBA. So we'll go through. When we record, we'll go through our bracket instead also and some of our the teams that we like, and then we'll get back to NBA following that. But, come especially those first few days or 2 of the – in my opinion, honestly, that Thursday and Friday, I don't think I have any other days in sports I like more than those 2 when the games are all day and the bracket's so fresh that you're excited. You're in these pools. You don't, you feel like you got a big shot until all of a sudden you get your first 2 buzzer beaters and you're done. But that feeling right off the bat, those 2 days and the amount of games and just the one and done, everything, that's awesome. So we'll definitely do that. Erik, buddy, thanks so much, my friend. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, folks. Make sure if you're listening to the podcast, share it around, subscribe to with all of your friends. Thanks so much. We'll talk some more NBA next week.
NBA.